I recall the image that I had saw. I mentioned it in one of my videos, but I don't really delve in it that much. But and it was just something that I saw within that image that I was privileged to see. I still have it, but I don't really present it or make use of it because I don't have the means or the capability of getting it in the right focus that I need to present it to say, hey, this is what that is. But the Spirit of God within me, not placing it on the Spirit of God, because sometimes we say, God said this, the Spirit of God and stuff, and they ain't said nothing. But I believe within, I'll just say, I believe what I saw, that which I had saw. It was just something that was in the background, very blurred out because of what was being showed in the foreground. The foreground was just standing out so much that it would cause anybody to overlook what was going on in the background. But I was able to bypass that and see what was in the background versus the foreground. And so, but I still have that image. But then there's this other image that I have presented several times. And I still look at it for myself constantly as today and keep getting different meanings, revelations, and understanding of it. And some of it is pretty much still the same, but still other things. And I look at the foreground of it and I look at the background of it. It has something in the foreground that makes you focus in on that. It's more like a distraction. Like in the first image that I saw, the image that was in the foreground, it was nothing no more than a mere distraction to keep you from seeing what was in the background. And just like in this second image, it's like what was presented in the foreground was so strong. It's like, I don't know, in some way maybe it was causing me to miss what was in the background or trying to distract me from the background, paying too much attention to it. It's almost kind of like when the enemy attacks and we focus in on the fears, our fears, the what's going on, our troubles, hardships, or whatever, that we miss. I ain't gonna say we. I speak for my son and myself that I and my son don't quite settle ourselves or see what God is doing in the midst of it or behind the scenes. Because just because the enemy is acting out in the foreground, that doesn't mean that there's nothing that God is doing in the background. And it's not always the foreground, it's the background that we miss. It's the background that's the important thing. Like David and Goliath, Goliath was in the foreground, but it was something in the background of Goliath that David had to get to, but he had to bypass Goliath in order to get from that. And and even just like Jesus and Jesus' situation going to the cross, that's the foreground of it all. The mocking, the spitting, the attacks, and all the things that Jesus had to go through. That's the foreground of it all. But it was something in the background of it that was the most important thing. But Jesus had to get, and we ourselves have to look bypass the foreground. All we can see is the cross. Like, woe is Jesus. No, woe is Jesus. Jesus, like, I see what's on the other side. You don't see. And that's why, he took that, he went on that cross because he knew something was better on the other side. It was that was which was in the background. And the reason why I'm talking about this or wanted to share or speak on this is because one, just two things, but one is because a host of things, and it's kind of difficult to explain, but I just say a host of things, spiritually and naturally, that surrounded me and my son. The things that try to close in, those are the foregrounds, but there's something in the background. And as I mentioned before, like Elijah, in the foreground all his servant could see was the soldiers and the men that were coming to attack him, to try to overtake him. All those men for one person. Wow. I guess, and I should be comforted in that because of my situation. But, when you're in it, it don't seem that comforting. But yet, there was something in the background. That background had a host of angels all surrounding everything that was surrounding Elijah. So it's easy. It was easy to get distracted about what was in the foreground because that wasn't the important thing. It was what was in the background. And the second thing is just this other image that I have. And I kept looking. The foreground is so strong in this image. I mean, it's just so strong. I kept looking at the foreground, but it's not the foreground that I just came to realize. And I've been seeing this image since 2019. And I always have to stress anything, all my images that I have, that I've taken or seen can be authenticated. But the one that I have from 2019, the foreground is so strong that you can miss the background of it all. Not to say that you'll get a quick understanding or a full revelation of it, or that you can see everything. Sometimes it's just glimpses. Sometimes it's just pieces of puzzles. But it's something about that background that the foreground makes itself appear so strong to keep you from seeing. And that it is. And that's how it is within me and my son's life. It's a lot of things in the foreground trying to present themselves or itself in the natural and the spiritual, very intimidating, threatening, overbearing, many God-likes, trying to present themselves bigger and stronger than God. And it's not so much as the foreground. It's like the background. What's in this background that this foreground is closing in so hard and attacking me and my son to keep us from seeing. And so I just wanted to just talk about that, touch on it for a little bit. You can put a question mark there, a period there, whatever you want. But it's not so much of the foreground, it's the background. And as always, thanks for listening, or rather choosing to listen.